Hello and welcome to another edition of the Willy-Nilly show. Friends, thieving, stealing, and robbing is both an art and a science. And the United States of America, the only superpower in the world since 1991, post the collapse of the Soviet Union and disintegration of the Soviet Union and unipolar world, has sort of perfected and mastered this wonderful art and science. In fact, the very edifice of the United States of America has at its core, as its base, thieving, stealing, and robbing. Let's begin with the earliest Western European settlers in these lands. They came here as settlers. They usurped the land and the power from the Native Americans, robbed them of their riches, and when it finally became a constitutional country with a constitution and became a democracy, they packed the Native Americans and sent them to the reservations to live a life of deprivation, starvation, and sheer misery. But America has always been like that. It even stole and robbed the culture and language of a constitutional country. So much so that the American presidents and ministers over the years, you might have seen that the very country with which they want to develop relations, they culturally disrespect them. You might be seeing the farce, the farcical things, the stupid, comical things that happen in the White House every now and then, especially during the current administration. What happened to the South African President Ramaphosa? He came to meet President Trump at the White House. He was shown a video footage of some farmland in South Africa, where apparently the white people, the white farmers, were tortured and robbed by black South Africans. The South African president kept saying, "This is not the footage from South Africa," but he persisted. And second thing, even funnier thing happened with the Liberian president. He came to the White House, and President Trump, you know how he is, whimsical and eccentric, and he blurted out, he said, "You speak very good English." He was taken aback, and he thought, and he said, "But it's my language. Like you, our country was a former English colony, and we made it our number one language after the left." But he kept saying, "Oh, but you speak very good English." As if that was not enough, another member of the Trump family, I think one of his sons, I don't remember which one, because he's got too many kids, the one who's got a smooth face. So he goes to the Fox channel, he's talking to the lady anchor, and he says, "You know what? I was accosted by this old Jamaican gentleman who spoke to me in broken English." Jamaica, broken English. Some of the finest exponents of Queen's English live in the Caribbean countries. Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, Guyana. So, but this is what you expect from Americans, because America, like I said, they robbed the culture and language. It's not a civilizational country. Now, cut to both the world wars, first and second. America was busy doing what it does best: thieving, stealing, and robbing. In the Second World War, they were busy making an ass, of their allies. They didn't bring the war to the mainland. They were busy developing their manufacturing sector, their defense sector, their agricultural sector, becoming a force to reckon with in terms of economy, whilst Europe was ravaged and plundered by the war. So this is how they treat their own allies. Now, during the Afghan war, from the very beginning, from the 70s, they started looting Afghanistan. But okay, they were pushing the oil, the pharma, and the arms trade through those wars. But one thing which people kind of ignore is the fact that they were making a lot of money through drug trade in Afghanistan, because the finest poppy plantation is done in Afghanistan. The current Taliban regime has destroyed those plantations, but still, America did that. Now, let's talk about two Gulf Wars. What America did in those two Gulf Wars. Okay, the first one was fine. I mean, they were trying to free Kuwait, from Iraq. But in the second one, they were talking about weapons of mass destruction, which are nowhere to be found. What they were actually doing there was they were destroying Saddam Hussein's regime and Iraq, and they were looting them of gold, oil, and believe it or not, art and artifacts, because America is not a civilizational country. It doesn't care about culture and civilization. So let me share this screen with you and show you an article, old one. So this is like more than 4 years old. It's from 2021. It talks about US to return 17,000 looted ancient artifacts to Iraq. But apparently, I think they didn't return all the stuff that they had stolen and robbed, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another article with you guys, which is from much later, 2023. So what does the article say? The Iraq War 20 years on, 20 years after the US invasion, where are Iraq's antiquities? So the looting didn't stop. See, entering the Iraq National Museum in the center of the capital, Baghdad, feels like traveling thousands of years back in time. So I don't think whether Americans understand the seriousness involved here, because they're talking about Mesopotamia, Sumerian, Assyrian, Babylonian. So this is what America is best at doing. But the ultimate thing that America has done recently, last week, in fact on Wednesday, the 10th of December was, it seized and captured a China-bound Venezuelan oil tanker carrying 1.8 million barrels of Merey crude. Well, of course, they don't know what was the country of origin of the tanker, because it was not registered in Guyana, because it was carrying a Guyanese flag. But apparently the government of Guyana said that it's not registered in their country. So the Americans were perfectly legitimate in boarding the ship and capturing it. But, can they keep the oil? That is the question that begs asking. So let me share this article with you. So that is a $1 million question. Act of piracy or law? Can the US legally seize a Venezuelan oil tanker? Well, and the American president was feeling very ecstatic about it. He said, we have just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large, largest one ever actually, and other things are happening. So he's right. It is indeed a very huge tanker. It's like 333 meters long. That is, Usain Bolt can run 300 meters and we will still be having 3 meters left to lose the momentum. And to 60 meters wide, carrying 1.8 million barrels of Merey crude, which was China-bound. So I don't know what China is going to say, what Russians are saying, but Venezuelans, they are very angry. Maduro even threatened to break the teeth of North Americans or America. Whether he can do that, I doubt. Whether he has the might to do it, I don't know, because it's America involved here. Let's take a look at the video footage.
its latest push to increase pressure on President Nicolas Maduro, who it accuses of leading a drug cartel.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
The seizure marks a major escalation in a months-long campaign against what the US calls drug smuggling boats. This week, US fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela, the closest its warplanes have come to the country's airspace. US forces have also bombed dozens of vessels in the Caribbean and Pacific since September, killing nearly 90 people, saying they were bringing drugs into the country. Washington has built up significant military presence off the coast of Venezuela, including warships, submarines, aircraft, and troops.
Es la DEA. Eso de un ex agente.
What they want is to steal our oil, to steal our gold, to steal our gas in our waters because they don't want to pay. And why won't they pay for it? Because they are thieves.
Robarse.
President Nicolas Maduro has denied the US accusations and remains defiant.
Decimos no al intervencionismo.
We say no to interventionalism. We say no to plans for destabilization and regime change. The US government should focus on governing its own country.
Venezuela has one of the world's largest oil reserves. It accuses the US of wanting to steal its resources by forcing regime change in Caracas. Trump's threat of military action is perhaps the most serious challenge to Maduro's 12-year presidency. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera.
I'm sorry, we'll come back to this news later. I must add those earlier articles, here because I forgot to add them last time. The one which talk about the stolen artifacts from Iraq. Sorry about that. So this one is the first article that I was referring to. US returned 17,000 looted ancient artifacts to Iraq. It is dated 2021, I think it was 4 years ago, August 3rd, 2021. And let me show you the second one. So this is the second one which I forgot to add to stage. So it clearly talks about 20 years on and where are the Iraq's antiquities. Sorry about that. Let us return back to that article talking about the Venezuelan tanker. So yeah, as you can see, the American soldiers from the Coast Guard rappelled down the Navy helicopter and seized the tanker. And President Trump, he announced at the conference in White House that apparently they're going to keep the oil. So they have looted $1 billion worth of oil from the Venezuelans, which is not a good thing, because that's the question that begs asking: is this an act of piracy, or they are perfectly legal in doing so? So let's see what some of the experts are saying. So we have seen the video. So as you can see here, President Trump is announcing that I assume we are going to keep the oil, which is so funny. So this is where it happened. This tanker was docked in Port of Jose. It started from here, and somewhere, in the Caribbean Sea, the American Coast Guard boarded the ship and seized it. Because what they're saying that they were trying to find out, because it was perfectly legal to board a ship when the ship is practically a stateless ship. You don't know about the country of registration. So they can do that in international waters. But one thing that they absolutely cannot do is seize it and keep the oil, because that is tantamount to looting. And that's what, basically the experts are debating, whether it's an act of piracy or they're perfectly legal. Because let's say if this is challenged in an American court of law, so they can say that it was a sanctioned ship and plus it was stateless, so we're perfectly legal. But in the international law, if they were to face an international court, I think they will lose it. Because they can only try to inquire about the country of origin where it's registered, but they simply cannot keep the oil and seize the ship. See, one of the experts even points out that Russia has hundreds of sanctioned tankers sailing today, but they have not been boarded. So maybe it's because Russia is a mighty country. They cannot afford to, antagonize Russia, but they can do it to Venezuela. But why is it that they want to do it to Venezuela? Is this just the harbinger of something more to come, something bigger to come? Is CIA preparing the ground for the American forces to take over Venezuela, oust Maduro, and plant the puppet Nobel Prize-winning lady, the opposition leader, at the helm of affairs there? Now that is a question that begs asking, because the moment CIA with the opposition party rolls out the red carpet for the American forces, then Maduro has to go. What will happen, nobody knows, and in fact it's written there. See, Maduro has long argued that the Trump administration's strikes on boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific are not in fact aimed at preventing drug running, but are a part of a plan to effect regime change in Venezuela. Trump has authorized CIA operations in Venezuela and has given conflicting messages about whether he would consider a land invasion. So apparently it is a part of a larger strategy, and this is just the beginning. And they've already attacked almost 21 civilian boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Like in September, they bombed a boat and killed all the civilians. And allegedly, it was a drug boat. People are saying it wasn't. We don't know the truth, but that has happened. The US Navy Admiral who ordered that operation, or that strike, was summoned by the court recently. So we don't know what is happening, but it's happening. But some of the things that America is doing, it's downright illegal, as we can see as people are debating. So let's see what happens in Venezuela. The situation is really tricky. But all in all, what I want to say is that I would like to end this video with the quotation of Kipling, that where east is east, west is west, and the twain shall never meet. West will keep robbing and thieving and stealing, and east, being at the receiving end, will keep stone, keep mum, not say anything. Now, I've spoken enough. It's already 20 minutes, and I've got nothing more to add, nothing more to say. You're all smart people. All I request you guys to do is please like, share, and subscribe, because I'm neither a sea pirate nor a buccaneer, and I don't go about stealing oil tankers, robbing oil tankers. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.